afternoon, everyone, and welcome to PBA at noon. I am Paul Benwell, and I'll be joined by my associate, Sophie Caesar. With us today is Grizzly Discoveries. Grizzly is a diversified Canadian mineral exploration company with its primary listing on the TSX Venture under the symbol George Zorro David. With 90 million shares issued, focused on developing its over 160,000 acres of precious and base metal properties in southeastern British Columbia. Grizzly is run by a highly experienced junior resource sector management team who have a track record of advancing exploration projects from early exploration right through to feasibility. Joining us today is Michael Dufresne, who is the QP, qualified person and a geologist for Grizzly. Welcome, Michael, and start whenever you're ready, and we will have some questions for you at the end.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul, and I appreciate the introduction, and I'll jump right into it and share my screen to start the presentation, if you bear with me. Okay, I'm here to talk about Grizzly Discoveries, Southeast BC, battery and precious metals properties. We have been exploring in the district for over a decade, and we want to give you a little background today. Forward-looking statements, the obligatory forward-looking statements that junior companies are obliged to put up there. I'll let you read those at your own leisure. Precious metal and battery metal property covers approximately 160,000 acres. You can see where they're located in southeast BC in the Fort Steele area and in the Greenwood area in south central BC. Both projects border the US border. We have several properties that we're focused on, Robocop, and then several sub-properties within the Greenwood project area. Both are actively being explored. Last fall and this summer, Grizzly spent about $1 million to date on exploration. These districts are proven, prolific, and historic mining jurisdictions. Everything is road accessible. We have deals in place with First Nations groups, and we've been looking at, in particular, in the Greenwood project, because of the size of our project area, joint venturing with a couple of other smaller junior companies to increase expenditures. The management and directors, it's a fairly strong and well-experienced board. Brian Testo is the founder of Grizzly and is known to most of you. He's the CEO and director. Recently, Jim Gregg and Chris Belchins have been brought on for corporate development, and Joe Price is an independent technical person. So a fairly strong board. Capital structure, about just over 93 million shares outstanding. Treasury was about $200,000, and Grizzly will be organizing a private placement in the near future, which I think is being announced today. Share ownership, there's a fair bit with management and certainly friends and associates. Our stock price is shown on the right in the recent one-year chart, anywhere from 3 cents up to 8.5 cents presently. The first project I'm going to talk about is the Robocop property, which is in the southeast corner of British Columbia, right up against and borders the U.S. State of Montana. It's within the Fort Steele mining district, south of Cranbrook. It's 100% owned, about 9,800, just over 9,800 acres. In 9 mineral claims, which we've recently expanded based on a lot of the work that we've been doing. Robocop can be worked, quite honestly, can be worked all year round, but there's a couple of months with a fair bit of snow that you don't want to be working. So at least 270 days a year you can be working. There's quite a bit of existing logging and logging roads throughout the property, 5 kilometers from a major highway that goes down into the US, Highway 93, and power lines. And an interesting little tidbit, Phillips Creek, the creek that you can see on the right here, where many of the showings are centered, has a private hydropower plant that private landowner feeds electricity back into the grid. It's an existing mining region with over 100 years of history in the Southeast Kootenays. There is some historic work that's been done that brought us to this project, and you can see the kind of numbers. Some grab samples with 2 to 3% copper, 0.5% cobalt, some trenches with 2% copper over 6 meters, and concomitant cobalt. Historical drilling, there's been about 15 holes that were drilled up to 1% copper, 1.15% cobalt over 2 meters. And this is sort of localized the work that has been done in the past and what we wanted to do. With that, you can see the area of drilling in the middle picture, the black circle, and some untested historic geochemical anomalies. So with that in mind, we designed an airborne survey about 500 line kilometers, what's commonly known as a VTEM survey, which looks at magnetics and electromagnetics. We also designed a soil sampling program, which we've completed this summer, and we're wanting to complete a 1,000 to 2,000 meter drill program. As I mentioned, historical drilling is in 15 holes has yielded up to 1% copper and 0.15% cobalt over a couple of meters right at surface. We've geological modeled the data. We certainly see consistent copper, cobalt, and even some silver values in a particular horizon. They are localized around structures, so we are focused on some of those structures. There's some offsets and some significant grades in a number of those holes. The mineralization type and style is a cobalt, copper, silver mineralization, similar in style and age to Jervois Mining's Idaho Cobalt Project and Hecla's Copper Cobalt Revet Formation Project in Troy, Montana. Just to kind of put this in perspective from regional geology, Canada-US border at the top of these two diagrams. This left red circle here is the approximate location of the Robocop project. Sullivan, the famous Sullivan lead zinc project, Kimberley to the northwest. The Idaho Cobalt project about 600-700 kilometers to the south in what's called the Lemhi Subbasin. This gray outline is belt Purcell rocks, Proterozoic rocks, sediments mostly with some volcanics in them. I've put 2 circles here because there's some similar mineralization on the Alberta-BC border in the Waterton Park and the old Spine Cop project that since has been put into a park and is no longer available. So we're it in terms of copper or cobalt mineralization in the Purcells in southeast BC. There are a number of other projects that are in the belt rocks. Black Butte is progressing towards construction. It's a very similar copper cobalt sediment hosted project, and Spar Lake is a past producer. Rock Creek is a project that Hecla is looking to bring into production. Just to give you an idea of the stratigraphy, which is essentially the vertical geology, Sullivan sits down here, blue star here at about 1.8 million years old. You can see the E-Cobalt project of Jervois is in the equivalent rocks to the Gateway Shepherd Formation, which is where Robocop is hosted, and those rocks are on the order of about 1390 to 1450 million years old, so 1.4 billion years old roughly. There's some significant resources at Jervois Idaho Cobalt project, about 54 million pounds of cobalt, 75 million pounds of copper, 80,000 ounces of gold, and that's our target. Those types of numbers and deposits. What have we done in 2021? We've focused in and around some of this historic work, but we've branched out and done quite a bit of regional sampling. The original discovery area is located here on the map here, and is an area of about 300 meters by 500 meters in background shaded geochemistry for copper here. Is the historic sampling, the new samplings all in these bold colors, and big red circles represent 100 to 1,000 ppm, in some cases 10,000 ppm copper, and cobalt runs with the copper. You can see here in purple a number of the EM conductive anomalies that we focused on. There's a number of stars and little yellow boxes shown on here that are priority geophysical anomalies. So we've completed that 409-kilometer VTEM survey early this year, and this summer completed a soil sampling program that we've now got all our results for. And that's allowed us to actually expand this 1 to 2 kilometer zone up to 6.5 kilometers in strike. This is some of the copper mineralization, malachite, from the discovery area. As I mentioned, this is the 6.5 kilometer long strike length now that we've developed. We've focused a lot of our soil sampling on specific geophysical targets, and we're rewarded with some interesting copper values at a lot of them. We got new rock grab samples. Float is an example here. This sampling was focused in an area with 2 geophysical anomalies about 400 or 500 meters west of the discovery area. And we managed to find these rocks here that yield up to about 3.35% copper in float. We have another showing, new showing out to the east here with 1.4% copper. All these, as far as we're concerned, warrant drill testing, particularly the conductive targets, which may indicate more extensive sulfide in and around these showings. There's a number of blue here. Blue is cobalt. High, big red blue circles here are high cobalt numbers, upwards of several hundred ppm cobalt. You can see here the discovery area again, and you can see I've highlighted some of the areas of high cobalt, which is also concomitant with the copper. We've applied for 20 holes, 10 in year 1 to drill this year. We're hoping to get that permit soon. We're also considering conducting follow-up ground geophysical surveys, HLEM, time domain loop surveys, or IP surveys to provide a better focus for targeting possible sulfide zones. But short of that, several of these conductors would be conducive to drilling. You can see a logging road that comes up into this logging cut. It would be not too difficult to push a road along this ridge and accomplish some drilling over here. Not only do we have battery metal potential at our Robocop property, but we do have some in the Greenwood area as well. What's it associated with? Well, the Greenwood area is famous for its precious metals, and it's associated with these old Paleozoic Grabens, and this would be the Okanagan Graben, the Rock Creek and Charota Grabens, and the Republic Graben, and even the Rossland Graben. And gold mineralization, base metal mineralization, is associated with intrusive events that are penetrative into these Grabens. One of the little known facts, although this district, the Greenwood Republic District, which is this little district here, has produced in excess of 7 million ounces and has several million ounces still in resources. At the turn of the 19th century, there was 3 copper smelters that were in production, and the Greenwood District was the largest producing copper district in the Dominion. And that was on the back of the Phoenix and Motherlode deposits and several other smaller deposits around those right in the Greenwood area. This is the town of Greenwood right here. What's the target for base metal, copper, cobalt, gold, silver mineralization? Skarns and alkalic porphyries. And here you can see the Phoenix pit produced over 1 million ounces of gold, 6 million ounces of silver, but also produced 520 million pounds of copper, which is a pretty significant copper producer. At today's metal prices, this will be the equivalent of $4 billion worth of total production. We have alkalic porphyry targets and skarn targets, Motherlode, Motherlode North, representing our skarn targets, and alkalic porphyries at the Dayton and Sappho. And I'll just illustrate a couple slides and then I'll wrap up. This is the location of the Phoenix mine, our 60, 70 kilometer long Greenwood project. Orange stars are our copper showings, well spread across the area. Motherlode here in the north central portion of the project, Sappho, Midway, and Dayton and Copper Mountain all have copper targets. We have an extensive database, over 10,000 soils, HMC samples, lots of geophysics, and quite a bit of drilling. Motherlode North was first staked, explored, and put into production in the late 1800s, early 1900s. This is a picture of the Motherlode pit here. It closed in 1919 and then reopened in 1956 and operated for about 5 or 6 years. in total produced 4.7 million tons, 170,000 odd ounces of gold, and about 77 million pounds of copper. We've done some drilling north of the pit and got some polymetallic intersections, gold silver focused here, but there's also percent level in terms of copper and lead zinc as well. There are some deeper targets below the Motherlode pit and peripheral to the Motherlode pit as well. This is our a conductivity map here. This is roughly about 500-600 meters in strike length. This is the north end of the Motherlode pit. Crown grants are currently falling away. All these blue pieces of land here in the mineral rights are reverting to Grizzly. We own the mineral rights for Motherlode North and have a number of planned drill holes to follow up the drilling that we did back several years ago. Basically, what we're looking for is magnetite chalcopyrite skarn that has copper, cobalt, gold, silver in it. Here's some of our intersections. You can see at Motherlode up to 1.56 grams per ton over 19 meters in drill holes, 6 grams over 4 meters with some fair bit of copper in them, and there also is some lead zinc in those. You can see here some of our examples of our porphyry type intersections at Dayton, 0.4% copper equivalent over 51 meters, and at the Sappho almost 0.38, almost 0.4% as well over 63 meters. The Dayton, the Sappho is pretty interesting as it's got a fair bit of platinum and palladium associated with the gold, silver, and copper. The Dayton property is at the west edge of what's called the Rock Creek Graben, a number of intrusive, probably Jurassic through Cretaceous intrusions in the area. It's identified by a strong copper gold geochemical anomaly in soils, and been mapped with a number of intrusions. Back in 2009-10, we drilled about a dozen holes here, mostly focused on a chargeability anomaly and the main soil gold and copper anomaly, but we drilled one hole, hole 9, into this eastern anomaly, which I'll give you a little picture of. Here you can see the chargeability anomaly. We drilled one hole into it and got about 0.4% copper equivalent over 51 meters, which is gold and copper. And this hole is not followed up, and it's currently permitted to drill, and we've got 2 or 3 more holes planned to drill around it. Just to wrap up, we have projects that have significant historical production. We have porphyry and skarn type and sediment hosted copper, gold, copper, cobalt, and we have another number of projects that we're currently exploring. And that's it. And I'll wrap there and I'll take some questions.
All right, great, Mike. Thanks so much for that. Would you mind, I do have a question for you. Would you mind going back to the last slide? It might help answer the question illustrated. One of the questions was, what are you looking for in particular, gold or copper? Right
now, our focus is the battery metals. We're definitely, we've been spending all our money the last 10 months on copper and cobalt, and gold and silver are still there. We've taken the tact of, we've optioned out two small projects in the Greenwood area to other junior companies that are going to take the tact of exploring for the precious metals. We're chasing battery metals. That's what we're doing.
And that actually brings me to another question. Seeing that you have so many properties and such large properties, is there a chance of a joint venture or a spin-off?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that's being discussed, is to potentially spin off the battery metals into another company. We have a sizable land package that is getting more and more difficult to service in terms of exploration dollars. And we've also engaged 2 other junior mining companies on joint ventures in the Greenwood area. But certainly, and it would be a large benefit to the shareholders, obviously, to do something like that. So it is being looked at.
Okay, excellent. And what are you permitted for? No, are you permitted, and if so, for what? And how is the permitting process going?
We submitted drill applications and application to do ground geophysics, specifically IP in the Robocop area back in July. We've been, it's going through the consultation process right now. We're expecting to get our permits at Robocop in the next month. In terms of that first pass drilling and doing some ground geophysical surveys. In the meantime, we already have bonded and permitted drilling for Motherlode and Motherlode North and the Dayton project. They're ready to go in terms of drilling and permitting.
Okay, and so do you, sorry, this question says, we'll have to go back to this question. Now for the Motherlode, is it going to be open pit or underground?
Currently, there is an existing open pit there, and so far mineralization is pretty close to surface. There actually is some historic underground underneath the pit as well. I would say we're targeting open pit. The area is pretty highly disturbed. It was the scene of, there was a small smelter there, and there's already that Motherlode pit there. So obviously it's endured a lot of, there's several open pits there already, and we would be envisaging something similar.
So when how's the relationship with the community? Is it a mining community? Are they open to the exploration and the work you're doing?
Yeah, we've been working in the Greenwood area for well over 10 years, 12, 13 years now. There's obviously a lot of skilled labor. They're very dependent upon logging. There is a long mining history. There's a gold silver mine that's off and on been in production called Lexington. I think in general, the community's quite in favor of mining. It's, I would say it has a lot of skilled labor, and we haven't had any issues whatsoever in terms of what we've been doing in terms of exploration. And we love the area, quite frankly.
Excellent. Now some financial questions. How much cash on hand and what's your burn rate?
Currently, there's about $200,000 in the bank. Burn rate is pretty minimal. I think there's some consulting fees paid to one of the officers. There's no salaried employees in the company. Burn rate is a couple $100,000 a year for Grizzly. So the money goes in the ground. We raised just under $1 million a year and a half ago, and I spent $1 million into the ground. So, it's the burn rate is pretty low. I understand that in these days they need a bit more IR, and I think with the financing that they're about to announce, once they got some money in the bank, they'll be a lot more proactive on the IR situation, as have a lot of junior companies had to do these days.
Okay, excellent. I know you mentioned it's a prolific mining area. Who's around you?
Yeah, sure. So in Robocop, we're there by ourselves. In the Greenwood district, there are a number of other competitors. There's Golden Dawn, there's X-Men, there's GGX. There's at least those three companies that are all conducting active exploration. Belmont would be a fourth one. So there's at least four other companies exploring on the Canadian side, on the US side, just across the border. And our properties basically intersect the US border. On the US side, Atamera and they've got a major involved with them, and of course Kinross is down there as well, and there's a fair bit of, and Fiore with the Golden Eagle deposit. So there's quite a bit of activity in what I consider the Greenwood Republic area. At least 6 or 7 or 8 active companies, and we've engaged 2 junior companies to do some preliminary work on the precious metals side on a couple small chunks of our property there. So they'll be getting going. Baden Resources being one of them, which has been announced, and so it's a busy area.
Okay, excellent. We have a question that just came in. Maybe, I don't know if you have this answer. What would be the estimate for salaries if there were salaried employees?
I don't know that a Grizzly will ever have salaried employees. I don't think they've had salaried employees in 10 years. So they're very focused on money in the ground. And I think they're very cognizant of, is particularly in today's times, keeping overheads down. A lot of these junior companies that raise 50 million, there's obviously some big salaries that go along with some of them. And that's not the case for Grizzly.
Okay, excellent. So, things are loosening up around the country. How are COVID restrictions, and are you finding that, things are easing up?
Yeah, I think, look, we performed an airborne survey in January. We did our soil rock sampling program in the summer without any issues. Us in the resource sector, we have a lot of ongoing precautions for COVID. We operate within the BC guidelines, and I think actually we even have more stringent guidelines ourselves. We do a lot of testing. Apex, as a consulting firm, has been operating exploration programs right across Western US and Western Canada, really without interruption due to COVID.
Okay, excellent. We had heard, we've had quite a few mining companies, Paul and I, over the last year, and we heard that labs were backed up. Are you finding that's an issue for you?
Wow, yes, for Apex certainly is, and some of our major clients that have big drill programs. We employed, when we did our drill program last October, November, at KET 28, we employed the Saskatchewan Research Council and TSL Labs out of Saskatoon, and we had month turnaround in our samples.
Yeah.
Right now, the industry standard is, I would say, 10 to 12 weeks. I suspect, once we get to drilling, we'll look at the SRC again. They do an excellent job, and we put all sorts of QA, QC samples in there. And control the assaying, both for copper, cobalt, and for gold, silver. I think we probably will be okay with that.
Okay, great. So how deep are you going to drill in? Is there a 43-101 historically or something more recent?
So, and one of the things I forgot to mention, those 15 holes that were drilled by Tech Kaminko in the 90s and Ruby Red in the early 2000s. Those were short holes. A lot of them were 100, 150 meter, 120 meter holes. And those holes were drilled prior to any geophysics on the property. There basically was done with no geophysics on the property. The rocks are fairly flat lying, but exposure is poor. There's talus everywhere. It's about 2% exposure. And, doing that kind of drilling, trying to find copper and cobalt and silver without geophysics, I don't understand it, quite frankly. And we certainly, some of those conductors, the indications are they could be 200 or 300 meters deep. So we will be drilling some 200-300 meter holes. We'll drill some shallow ones, but our focus will be to get some good stratigraphic section. There's a bit of a shutdown rock, which is called the Nickel Volcanics, Nickel Creek Volcanics. But get up on top of some of those ridges where those anomalies are, we're going to have to drill some 200-300 meter holes.
Okay. We have a question here from Charlotte. What consultation has been done with the community on the Robocop site?
It's been pretty basic so far, as we're just at the exploration stage. So we certainly have a consultant engaged, and we've had some video chat meetings. We haven't really gone face to face due to COVID, but we have been in consultation with the local group there.
Okay, perfect. Paul, do you have a question or two for Mike?
Yeah, a couple of things, Mike. You've lately, in the last couple of months, you've rebranded yourself as a battery metals explorer. Now, so I'm assuming, or I'm asking, is your focus going to be on copper mainly as part of that?
I think it's copper cobalt. There is cobalt in the Greenwood area. There's not been a lot of analysis for cobalt. There are places where some of those skarns have got up to 0.1% cobalt in them. I think it's not well known what the cobalt potential is out there. And it's certainly something that we've gone back and looked at pretty hard. And there are some copper cobalt. There's definitely a lot of copper in the area, and that is probably in the Greenwood area our prime focus. But certainly Robocop, we're engaged to look at cobalt copper, and it's very similar. They're exactly the same stratigraphy and rocks as what's in the Idaho cobalt belt, albeit 500 kilometers at the other edge of the basin. Same rocks, same style of mineralization, and we would argue same kind of potential.
Gotcha. All right, then I got a two-part question. What grades? The question came in. What grades do you need to be a mine? I mean, and I'm assuming that I'm talking copper here, and then part of that question is: are you an explorer or a producer? Are you good? You know, like, so are you going to go to production?
Yeah, look, Mike and Apex are predominantly explorers. However, we have a lot of involvement in mining projects. We currently are involved. I have people employed in 3 different mines right now as we speak, and I have lots of experience with mining. But our primary focus is exploration. In terms of what kind of grades do we need to see, you know, I think the Idaho Cobalt project is 0.6, 0.7% copper and 0.3, 0.4% cobalt. I think we seem to be a little bit more copper rich and a little less cobalt rich so far. But again, 15 holes and pretty historic exploration. You know, 1% copper and 0.1, 0.2% cobalt. Those are legitimate numbers that effectively equate to $100 to $150 rock, and I should qualify that, $100 to $150 a ton rock. Yep. And you know, those you can establish open pits and underground on those kinds of numbers. So you know, that's in the ballpark. We're certainly looking for a plus 1% copper, plus 0.1, 0.2% cobalt, and some of these rocks in Robocop have up to 20 or 30 grams per ton silver in them as well, which is a nice add-on. And you know, would we love to have $200 a ton rock? Yes, but I think you can get you're starting to get into economic grades, potentially economic grades in the $100 to $150 a ton range.
Okay. Now, one last question that came in to me. You're a junior exploration company, and you have a huge property. I mean, doesn't that say that this should be split up somehow? Or I guess the question of what he's trying to get at is, where's your focus going to be? Because it's such a large property. You don't want to spending money all over the place.
Yeah, back in the 2010-11, Grizzly raised a substantial amount of money and did a lot of the baseline type of work that we needed to get done, which was the airborne surveys and soil samples. And now I think Greenwood project is at a point where it's very focused. You know, there's half a dozen occurrences, showings that need a lot of drilling. And our goal is and probably ground geophysics, and our goal is to bring a couple of junior explorers in to help share some of that expenditure requirements, because you know, we're 5 cents and 90 million shares out there, and it's hard. It's not been easy raising money the last couple of years, even for us. You know, so you know, I think we're looking at everything, spin outs, as Sophie mentioned, and you know, potentially bringing in these joint venture opportunities on small portions of the property that help to get the expenditure level up and still maintain our exposure to it.
No, exactly. Well, Mike, thank you very much for the update and a much better understanding of where your focus is and where you're moving. Thanks to everyone for joining today. Much appreciated as always. And we'll be keeping you all posted with what's going on over the next few months with Grizzly, so you'll be up to speed. Thanks again, Mike. Take care. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Mike.
Bye.